Welcome back to the lesson. In this video, we're going to be discussing about classes and IDs in HTML. So what are classes and what are IDs in HTML? Well, classes and IDs are basically a way for us to assign a custom name to our HTML document. They're basically added to a HTML element in form of attribute. So let's go ahead and start by adding the class attribute to our HTML document right here. As you can see, I have already defined 3 different divs right here, 1, 2, and 3, all with some HTML elements inside, which are h2 and a paragraph. So let's actually go ahead and start with the first one right here. Let's come right inside the div opening tag. I'm going to give a space and say class. Alright, and as I've mentioned, classes and IDs are basically a way for us to give a custom name to our HTML element. So I'm going to go ahead and give a custom name to this our div right here. So we're going to go ahead and say city. Alright, so now our div element right here has a custom name called city. And mind you, you can go ahead and give it any name you want. It's totally fine because it's user defined. So for the first div right here, I give it the name city, the class name city. Now we can go ahead and manipulate this first div element using its unique name right here, using its unique class name right here. So let me actually go ahead and show you how to do that. Now if you go here inside our CSS style element, remember before we've been targeting tag name. Let's say for instance we wanted to target div. This is a tag name that we are targeting. So now any style we apply will be applied to all the div inside of our HTML elements. So let's say for instance we wanted to change the color to, let's say, green. And if I go ahead and save our file now, all the div inside of our HTML element will have the text of each of their content changed to green. So let's actually go ahead and save our file. As you can see now, everything has changed to green. Everything now, every content inside of our div right here, the text color has changed to green. So what if we wanted to target a specific div element? So this is basically the idea of using classes and IDs to give a unique name to our HTML element so that we can target individual elements and apply or manipulate it separately. So now I'm going to go ahead, instead of targeting our div, we're going to go ahead and target our class name right here that we assign to our first div right here. So let's go ahead and do that. Now to target a class name, all we need to do is to first of all use the dot or the period symbol and then call our class name, which in this case is city. So let's go ahead and copy that, paste it right after our dot, like so. Now we are simply targeting the element with the class name city, which is our first div right here. And now if I go ahead and save our file now, the styling inside our definition block right here will only be applied to the first div here that have the class name city. So let's go ahead and save our file. As you can see, now the styling only applies to the first div. So this is basically the idea of classes in HTML. Let me actually go ahead and add some more styling to our city class. So instead of the color, I'm going to want to first of all change the background color first to, let's say, tomato. Alright, and the text color should be, let's see, white. Let's actually go ahead and save our file to see. Okay, that's great. Now we're going to go ahead and add a border. Let's say border. I wanted to set it to 1 pixel solid, and we're going to give it a black color. Alright, let's go ahead and save our file. Now let's actually go ahead and add some margin. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and set it to 20 pixels. Save our file. Okay, perfect. Now let's go ahead and add some padding as well. And we're going to set it to 20 pixels as well. Now let's go ahead and save our file. Great, that's perfect. Now different element can share the same class name. So that is basically the only difference between a class and ID. Even though we haven't exemplified ID yet, but the only difference between classes and IDs is that multiple HTML elements can share the same class name, but they cannot share the same ID name. So ID has to be unique for a particular element. IDs can only be used on a single HTML element, while classes can be shared among multiple HTML elements. So basically multiple HTML elements can share the same class name. For instance, let's actually go ahead and copy this class name right here, copy, and we're going to paste it to the second div right here, paste. And if I go ahead and save our file, as you can see, the styling is applied to the second div as well, sharing the same city class name. And we're going to as well go ahead and add for the third div, like so. Save our file. As you can see, our three divs right here are sharing the same class name. So it's totally fine in HTML. You can go ahead and share the same class name to multiple HTML elements, and that is completely fine. Alright, so friend, that's all about the classes in HTML. Now we're going to go ahead and exemplify the IDs, which are basically unique and they can only be used by a single HTML element at a time. So let's go ahead and do that. Now let's come right above everything, and I wanted to specify, let's say, heading 1, and I'm going to go ahead and add some text, say my cities, something like this. Let's go ahead and save our file. As you can see, we have our heading 1 right here. So we can go ahead and assign an ID to our heading 1. So let's come over here and add a space and say ID attribute, and let me call our ID my header, something like this. So this should be our ID name. So this must be a unique ID. You cannot have any other element inside this HTML document with the same ID name, my header. So ID need to be unique. That's basically the difference between IDs and classes in HTML. So now we can go ahead and target our heading 1 ID name instead of the tag name to manipulate the content inside. So now let's come over here, right underneath our city styling. We're going to go ahead and say hashtag my header. Alright, our declaration block, hit enter. So to target an ID name, we need to use the hash symbol. So this is basically the difference between ID and classes. You can see to target a class name, we use the dot and then followed by the class name. And for ID, we use the hash symbol, we say hash and then followed by the ID name. So now I'm going to go ahead and add some styling to our heading. So let's go ahead and change the background color. Let's say background color to, let's say, light blue, something like this. Alright, and then I'm going to go ahead and change the text color, the font color to, let's say, color to black. Let's go ahead and save our file to see. Alright, that is perfect. Let me actually go ahead and add some pattern. Let's say pattern, the inner space, let's say set it to 40 pixels. Save our file. Great, that's perfect. Now we are having more spacing within our heading 1 container. And then lastly, we're going to go ahead and centered align our text right here. So let's go ahead and say text align. Let's set it to center. Alright, let's go ahead and save our file. Yes, as you can see now, our heading 1 is centered and everything is looking good. Let me actually go ahead and expand this a bit like so. Alright, perfect. Let me actually reduce this to something like this. Alright, so friend, that will be it for this video. I hope now the concept of adding classes and ID to our HTML element is clear to you and that you enjoyed this lessons, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.